Hello, everyone. Welcome to Laura's View and Tarot 2. Today's date is Monday, September 18th, 2023. And today I am pleased to have a talk that you can listen in on with John Michael, who recently had a viral video on TikTok talking about September 23rd. And he's also been speaking out on subjects that I find myself in total agreement with. So I thought, let's have him on and see where the conversation takes us. Welcome, John Michael.
Thank you, Laura, for having me. I'm really happy to be here. I'm very excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, and without the 10-minute limit that TikTok puts on you. So if you want to go into a little more depth and detail, you are welcome to.
Right. Yeah, that's great.
Well, for people that maybe aren't familiar with you on TikTok, let's talk first of all about where they can find your content. And then I'd love to know a little bit about your journey into speaking out and starting these platforms you're doing.
Yeah, sure. No problem. So first of all, right now, my TikTok username is john.michael.1111. And that's the primary place where I'm putting out content. I do have a YouTube channel also. But the YouTube channel is mainly replays of I held 3 hour long live sessions that essentially turned into a sort of a class where I did it every week on Saturdays, starting from like March all the way through up until August. So the replays are on there, and my YouTube username is John Sabo 33, JOHNSABO 33 for YouTube. But essentially, this is kind of how it worked for me. I think it's a little bit of a different kind of take on things, because I am very, very left-brained. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in microbiology, and so I was very science. Let me figure out how to do this, and in a rational way where it would make sense to my left brain. And then after I graduated from graduate school, I went into sales. And so I learned with sales that, just like in science, when I was learning all the technical knowledge, observation is important, right? And so once I understood that observing someone's words aren't enough, because they could say a word and then do an action that is complete polar opposite. And I learned then that when action is the last part of the manifestation process, that actions always tell the truth of what the person's intention was to begin with. So I had a head start kind of just in my daily life. I've had this career for 20 years. I just walked away from beginning of August, and it led me into kind of starting to ask more deeper questions with energy slash spirituality things when my awakening started after a breakup that happened in 2012. And so then what I kind of delved back into is I'm a nerd. I like to learn. I like to learn technical stuff. I would go back and read my grad school bacterial pathology books. I mean, I'm talking about nerd to the extreme, and that's just who I am. So I realized that all the questions that I had from graduate school, I had to go smaller. I had to go smaller than the molecular and atomic level. And that led me to quantum mechanics. And so I started teaching myself quantum mechanics courses that I would get books from Northwestern and University of Chicago, where I live in Illinois here in Chicago. And I realized that once you get to that point of small, at the point of energy, or where something hasn't manifested into an atom yet, the rules of physics completely change. Completely. And that was when I started to get my first visuals in meditation. And I realized, wow, this is all real. This is all real. Everything is real. Our imagination is not what we think. Everything is not what we think. And from there on, what my goal was to do was to use observation, connect it with science where I could, so that anybody then that asked the question, I could serve it up as, here is an example that you can see, feel, touch, observe, and then it's up to you whether or not you want to believe.
Right. I ask people always to hold a place for information they're not ready yet to accept, but don't dismiss it out of hand. That kind of ties in with something that I think we've been mistaught about so many things, like trusting our judgment. And we've been taught that some things are dismissible because they don't fit the mainstream narrative. What do you think are some of the biggest misteachings we live with and need to overcome?
The first thing that, I mean, the core of all of these learnings and all of the illusions, for me at least, is what you just said. It's the fact that our feelings, our intuition is the core of everything, not our thoughts. And the reason that I I am so adamant about that is because when you realize that your emotions and your feelings are magnetic, which is the y axis, right? The invisible y axis or the divine feminine, and your thoughts, right, are electric, which is the x axis, which is the masculine, the divine masculine, okay? And those two things are connected. You can see the masculine because it's made of photons of light, but you can't see the feminine that is powering the masculine. So, in other words, they want us to run on our thoughts because they have a way to send thoughts in, but they don't want us to pay attention to our feelings because that's what they're siphoning out of us by giving us low vibrations. And that is the power source of everything.
Right. If someone was interested in making sure that their power was in balance and not being siphoned off, how would you advise them to go about doing that?
The first thing I would just say is how do you feel? um, are you happy? And if you're not happy, be honest with yourself about what's not making you happy. There are layers to this. This is like a big old stinky onion, you know, because you have to ask yourself, am I not doing this because I'm worried about what someone's going to say on the outside? Am I doing this because I'm worried about how things might change with a relationship with someone else? You got to get through all of that, right? So it all boils down to the same question every time. Are you happy? And if you're not happy, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Start at that layer of the onion and peel it off.
Yeah, yeah. I think people need to not feel guilt about being happy and joyful. That's actually our natural state of being. And we've been taught that our natural state of being is to be dutiful and hardworking and, you know, self-effacing. And all of that goes to that imbalance with the, you know, divine feminine and divine masculine.
Yep. And that's funny that word that you use, guilty. Until I was 33 years old, I didn't realize that I actually limited myself on the happiness that I felt because I felt guilty. In this lifetime, I've been blessed. I've been able to do things that one thing after another, big things that I am beyond thankful for. And I was, the gratitude I had about it made me feel guilty because why should all these good things keep happening to me and they don't happen to other people? And all I wanted other people to feel was what I felt. And when I kept trying to do that, I kept getting knocked down. I didn't understand. But you hit the nail on the head. Like for me personally, even because it's about understanding boundaries are important and balance is important. And that's what changed the game for me.
Yeah. If my happiness is not at the expense of someone else, I'm free to enjoy it as much as possible.
Absolutely.
And we have to understand that everybody's on their own different paths.
That's right.
And they have to take life and growth at whatever speed they're comfortable with. And that sometimes gets into how they arrived on this planet, you know, what speed maybe that they had agreed to do things or not do things, you know. Some people are placeholders, just slowing the momentum down so that others have a chance to grow and shine. You know, it's kind of mind-boggling at times, isn't it?
It absolutely, and you know what? This is something big because ever since that video just hit 1.8 or 1.9 million views today, and it's still climbing. And the comments is like, oh yeah, yoy. But this is something that's important because this part is tough, right? This part is tough for those of us who do things like these topics and talk about these things publicly. When you play a board game, when you play Candyland with a 4-year-old, right? That 4-year-old is learning how to win. It's an important part of their developmental process so that they understand how to win. They're not interested in what Candyland really means or how the game was made or any of that. They're focused on winning. And they don't want to talk about anything else except for that, because that's where they're at in their evolutionary process. And so when I thought about that, all of us human beings, we don't really know the age of our soul technically, other than maybe some behavioral patterns, right? So when someone comes at you and they want to win, you just let them win and you walk away. Because otherwise it's like boing, boing, boing. I mean, you engage with that and it could suck the energy right out.
Exactly. And that may actually be what their true motive is. So a
Yes.
lot of times when I've interacted with people that seem to be discouraged, or, they say, I've been awake for 20 years and it's just going on too long or whatever, I realize some of them are genuine and some of them aren't. And on my channel, we treat them both the same. Yeah. We just say, hey, sounds like you need to unplug and work on some self-care and, kind of fill your bucket up and just let this stuff go for a while.
Yeah.
Because if they were trying to, get people to, suck our energy, well, we've stopped them with some good advice. And if they need that good advice, they got it. Either way, it's a win-win.
That's right. That's all there's to it. Yeah. It becomes a lot easier that way, doesn't it? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk a little more about September 23rd, your TikTok video. Can you kind of sum it up for us? Because I did a read on it several weeks ago on September 23rd. I had a viewer ask during a live stream. And I got a big yes, something's going to happen, but it's something we're all going to be happy about. Don't worry, just watch and enjoy. So,
absolutely. So there's a few videos that I made about September 23rd. The most recent one that had the most views, I didn't put all of the components into it. So again, the way I came up to this date was by a pattern or by observations that created a pattern. Okay, so I won't make any TikToks at all unless I can directly observe a pattern that I see connecting. So at least 3 things that I can connect together, because that tells me that it's happened in history and it's probably going to continue to come around this way, right? So for example, before I get to September 23rd, back on June 18th and 19th, when the Schumann resonance went crazy and everyone I felt drunk for 2 days. I don't know. I know everyone had different ascension symptoms, but I made a video that said that I thought that at that point, there looked like there were 2 suns that were close and that they were going to collide, and there was going to be the release of the divine feminine Merkaba. So in the Schumann resonance, there was a Merkaba there. And the way I got to that was through analysis of many different sources, one of which is called the Poetic Edda. It's a Norse mythology, Northern Scandinavian cultural kind of heritage stories, like spiritual stories. And in there, Odin, who is the equivalent of God, says, on that 18th I know, which I never reveal to maiden or man's wife, and he goes on and on. And so there are, in fact, dates that are encoded in a lot of different of these resources. The tricky part is that you can't just go to one source, because all the time, the biggest source that I always hear all the time is, well, that's not in the Bible. Well, it's probably not in there because they probably took it out because they're not going to make things easy. But when you start to really connect all different sources, which the religion tells you not to do, and you look and see where there are similarities and you start to connect them together, that leads you down a path. And so for September 23rd, there were a few things. Number one, I know that September 23rd has been a thing for years, right? I know it has. That's on purpose. That's on purpose to make things confusing and to get us all going like this, okay? This year is 2023. There are several different things going on in the sky right now. On September 15th, there was an asteroid called the Child that was birthed out of the womb of Virgo at 6 o'clock a.m. in 23 seconds. It moved, and in 10 seconds, so from 6 o'clock and 23 seconds to 6 o'clock and 33 seconds, it moved from inside the womb to outside the womb. Call me crazy, but I don't take that as coincidence at all. In addition to that, when you look at the pattern of Rosh Hashanah, another religion, right? We're moving around now. There is a specific date that is set that correlates with this child, which only gets birthed out of Virgo. I think they said every 30 years. Don't quote me on that because that might not be correct. But essentially, what it all leads up to was another pattern of different, all from all different places, and you start to see what's similar, and you connect it together. And the reason why I know that this works, and the reason why this has been successful with some of the predictions I made in the past, is because this is what you do in real science, right? So, like, for example, when our cells reproduce, when one cell makes two new cells, right, which is going on all the time in our bodies, one of the most important functions in our cells are the ribosomes. Ribosomes translate messenger RNA into protein. Without protein, there's no life. That's the enzymes and everything that do stuff. When there is a mutation in a ribosome and it can't function, life stops. So because of that, scientists knew all the way back, starting in like the late 70s, early 80s, that always look to ribosomes for when you look at evolutionary processes, because that has to remain consistent for the process to continue. This is the same thing. You look at what's the same and you start to connect the dots. And then you can see what the differences are, and you start to understand what might be a fib and what might not be. Having said all that, I could be wrong. Maybe nothing will happen, but the closer we get, the more confirmation and the more confident that I do get that something is going to happen. We just might not know exactly what.
Yeah. Exactly. I was looking last night at all the, we know that I come from a belief system that there is good and evil, and they're in conflict. They're polar opposites. Okay. And I was looking at, and evil, I do believe what we're told, that evil has to follow some certain rules. They can be tweaked, but they can't be, ignored. And one of those is telling us what they're going to do, which is a big part of the entertainment industry, is by coaching it as entertainment. They're giving our implied consent to, okay, zombify this or whatever. And I was looking at all of the media that had a recurring theme of September 23rd in it. And right there, it was amazing. It was amazing how many instances it shows up in film for predictive programming, the collective consciousness, whatever, and probably, like you said, more towards a fear-based than an anticipatory, like, oh, I think something wonderful may be about to happen and I'm going to be at the front row seat on it.
Exactly. And that fear-based mentality, that's the reason it's been going on for so long, because it's ingrained so much now. Like in the video that has the most views, I never said, I started out by saying there's no danger. You wouldn't believe the number of comments. It's the end of the world. It's scary. It's this is this. I didn't say anything about that, about dying, about this. But that's how ingrained it is. And that's the point of it. And it's movies, it's lyrics of songs. A couple weeks ago, I started singing a Green Day song that I didn't even like this song when it was out in the 90s, When September Ends. It's put in front of our face to scare us, because they know that if we're all scared, then what we want to manifest that's good for us and not for them, they have more control over it, right? So that there's the balance part.
That was one of the reasons I tried, and technological issues kind of interfered. But I wanted our monthly meditation that my channel does this month to be everybody to focus on best possible outcomes.
Yeah.
From the smallest best possible outcome, my relationship with this or financial, to galactic ones. I mean, let's envision those and help those come about.
Yeah, absolutely. Always. what we don't realize as a collective, as a collective group of beings, is that we are doing this in every moment all the time. We just don't realize it yet. And that's the hard part, is getting people out of a belief system that is nonsense in order to control them, and putting us back into our power so that we become our own savior, because that's the empowerment part, right? You don't need someone else to save you if you could do it yourself. You don't
Right.
need someone to drive you to the store once you get your license, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Now I've had people say, and again, it induces fear when they say, no one's coming to save us. I say, no, but they may be coming to mentor us. They may be coming to tutor us. They may be
That's right.
coming to encourage us. So yeah, while we may have to do the hard work ourselves, as much as you want your little toddler to learn how to walk, you can't do it for them. You just have to encourage them, show them how to do it, go, yay, when that,
That's right.
celebrate. We can all
Yep.
benefit from that, but we also
That's right.
have to be ready to put the boots on the ground and do some of that work ourselves and not wait
Absolutely.
for it.
And leading by example. If you're going to talk the talk, be the first one to walk the walk. And that's why I post those videos.
Yeah, yeah,
We'll see.
yeah. Well, one of the things that bothers me is how people have been taught that change is fearful.
Mm-hmm.
It's inevitable, so let's fear it.
Yeah.
I think that we have to realize that every possible change that can come at us has the potential to be fabulous.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. Yep. And change, I mean, really, change is going on all the time. Without change going on all the time, we wouldn't be here, because our cells are replicating, and right, it's constant. And so I think that it's a lot of this stuff, it goes back to irrational fear, right? Where does the irrational fear come from? And that's where it gets into a lot of the discoveries that I first that kind of launched me into this with quantum mechanics, is that our speech, especially the English language, I found, our speech, when you talk, it creates a magnetic field. It creates a 3D magnetic field. And when you say the right words in the right order, it can create a magnetic shape that will fit on one of your layers of your subtle body. So, our aura, we have chakras, we have different layers of the chakras. So it will fit like a necklace or like a helmet on your subtle body, and it works as a fear program. That's a real thing. But the irrational fear part, when you're afraid of something and you don't know why, I have found that when I've worked with people energetically, there is a very simple way you can get rid of that. It's the name of the game with all of this stuff and transforming yourself is awareness. And once you have awareness, then you need to take it to the next step and have understanding. There's a reason why in all the Christmas movies when we were kids, they said seeing is not believing. That's because awareness is not understanding. You need to have both for it to change you.
yeah, yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, if you could impart 3 words of wisdom to people, 3 pieces of advice for people that say, okay, so I'm hearing you say that we've been programmed to fear. I know I need to kind of change some of my thought patterns or behaviors, to be more accepting. What would you tell people good starting places are for making those changes and building that awareness?
Yeah. So I think the first part is, because we've been so, some of us, who knows how long we've been here, right? The very first thing is that when you start realizing these things, you start looking for answers as to why this or that happened to you, or why you experienced this or that. And so the first thing I would say is that there's no one to blame. And what I mean by that is that they pit us against each other on purpose, because we have the power and they don't. And so when I say no one is to blame, what I mean is that no one's to blame when you're put into a situation where the game is rigged against you. So whatever happened, learn from it, and then let it go, because no one is to blame. Number two, trust yourself. Your feelings are the most important thing that you have. Your intuition, how you feel. Does something not feel right? Don't talk yourself into something else because it's set up like this on the outside. Learning to trust yourself and then taking action on it, electric, and speaking it, magnetic. The speaking part for feelings is the most important part because speaking is magnetic and your feelings are magnetic. The third thing is just look at this like it is. This is a movie. I started doing this thing when I was a kid, and I don't know why I started doing this. No one told me this. I didn't even tell anybody about this until I was in my 40s. But starting in 8th grade, I was valedictorian in my 8th grade class. I was the shortest one out of all the guys and girls. My voice didn't change yet. I mean, it was like I thought I was going to be. I'm not a big guy now, but I thought I was going to be little forever. Okay, like my mom named me Chicken Little when I came home. I think it like cursed me until that next summer I finally hit puberty and I grew. But I remember being so nervous and going up there, and I was self-conscious about how I looked. My head was really big. My body, my shoulders didn't grow yet. I was like a lollipop on like a stick. My voice was like this, and I thought to myself, John Michael, when you are 100 and you look back at your life, this is not any kind of big deal. So don't make it a big deal, and it won't be. And focus on what you know how to do good and make that a big deal instead, because then you'll have fun. And that's what I did. It turned every scary situation into a completely different thing. And I would start laughing about things in my head. I would act appropriately. However, once you understand and start looking at things like you have the control, you do. And it changes everything.
Yeah, our perception actually helps create a reality, it manifests it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been fascinating. I think this is probably a good place to stop before people, have to
Yeah.
watch for too long, and then maybe whet their appetite to do it again sometime.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
again, when I read about September 23rd, not even being aware that you were one of the predictors, I had just heard that there was a comet possibility happening, that might look like a second sun, what have you. That was all I knew. I just trusted what the cards told me. And again, they told me, yes, something's going to occur on or near that day, and it's going to be major, but it's going to be celebratory. It's going to be something good for the human
All
race.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for bringing that back up again, because I know that I talked about some things that obviously people took as scary, even though I said it wasn't supposed to be scary. This is all good. There is nothing bad about this. This is not anything about end of the world or dying, or exactly opposite. This is about us becoming who we really are supposed to be now, right now.
Yeah.
Not later, now.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how excited I am. It's all very good. So yes,
Yeah.
agree with that.
Well, we've been dumbed down and, impacted, so that we were not at our best. We haven't had the chance to explore our potential. And so I think if there's endings, it's from some of those artificial constraints that kept us dumbed down, lower vibration, fear filled, everything. That stuff's ending so that we have a chance to explore our potential. And some people will choose not to, and that's okay. That's their path. And
Yeah.
some people will embrace it and run with it, and that's glorious and that's wonderful,
100%. And I fully anticipate on being one of those people that tries to do it first, because someone's got to do it. And I know you.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Yeah, unlock those potentials. I'll see where they take me.
That's
And I
right.
tell people, I've screwed up a lot in my life. I've made a lot of mistakes. I learned, like you said, I've learned from them. I've let stuff go, done, I've gotten to where that forgiveness of self and forgiveness of others is pretty well done,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But I said my goal now is to finish well. When I
Abs-
finish this lifetime, I want to be able to say I finished well. In other words, don't let those mistakes help me grow, but they don't
and
need
you
to define who I am now, and they have no bearing probably on where I'm headed, you know?
absolutely not. This is, and so I agree 1,000,000% with that wholeheartedly. And you know what? I don't even call them mistakes anymore. I call them learning experiences, because what I've discovered is that when there is some sort of something that you would have called a mistake in your past where you don't feel good about how what you said or did, right? And we've all had something like that. There was an agreement between the parties to experience that. And so as long as you learn from it and put your best foot forward from it, that's what it's all about. And what I've also learned is that when your spirit team puts something in front of you to learn, and you decide you don't want to learn it, they keep putting it in front of you, but every time they turn the volume up a little bit higher until you got to act to some kind of way so that you learn it. So again, no one is to blame. Everything is good. I'm trying to live every day now with the heart of a child, because I think that's really how things are supposed to be.
I do too. Like I said, we were built to be joyful. We were. There's
Yeah,
a reason it takes fewer muscles to smile than it does to frown.
absolutely. And I know there's some days that are tough. I've had a couple of them back to back lately. When you have feelings, let it out, express yourself, get it out, and then move on.
Yeah,
Not work.
great advice. So, and on that note, I'm going to thank you for having this conversation with me, and we'll share it as far as we can, which might take a few days since I'm in the naughty corner over on YouTube right now. But thank you again for being here.
Thank you
Last
so much.
words?
Yes, and no, I no. Thank you so much. This was a great conversation. You know where to find me. I was thrilled to do this. Thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Bye, everybody.
All right, bye.